Every once in a while, someone appears with a dream so big it sounds impossible. Someone who believes that luxury isn't just for the rich, but a mindset anyone can reach for. In Nigeria, that person was Sujimoto, a name that once stood as a symbol of class, ambition, and architectural brilliance. When Sujimoto burst into the scene, he wasn't just building houses, he was building statements, projects that spoke of wealth, style, and the new face of Nigerian luxury. His buildings became more than structures, they became dreams in concrete form. People looked at his towers and said, "This is what success looks like." His confidence was unmatched. Every interview, every event, he spoke like a man who saw the future clearly. He called himself Nigeria's #1 luxury developer, and honestly, back then, no one could argue. Sujimoto was the face of ambition, proved that with vision and courage, anything was possible. From Banana Island to Ikoyi, his name became synonymous with elegance. He had built not just properties, but a brand personality, one that blended audacity with creativity. People loved the story, how he started from nothing and rose to dominate the skyline. To many young Nigerians, Sujimoto wasn't just a businessman, he was an inspiration, a living reminder that your background doesn't define your ceiling. But behind every shiny glass tower, there is always a foundation, and sometimes what's beneath begins to crack before anyone sees it. And that's where the story begins to shift. Before the fame, before the luxury towers, before the name Sujimoto became a brand, there was Sujibomi Ogundele, a young man with nothing but raw ambition and a burning dream. He wasn't born into wealth. In fact, his story began in Agege, one of Lagos' rougher neighborhoods, a place far from the polished glass buildings he would later build. Like many Nigerians, he started from the bottom. He hustled, learned, failed, and tried again. But one thing that set him apart was his vision. He could see beyond the chaos. While others saw Lagos traffic, he saw movement. Where people saw poverty, he saw potential. Education became his ladder out. He worked hard, traveled abroad, and discovered the world of real estate, an industry where creativity met money and where dreams could take physical form. When he returned to Nigeria, he carried a mindset shaped by global exposure. He had seen how cities like Dubai and New York transformed through bold architecture, and he believed Nigeria deserved the same. He decided to build something that would redefine Nigerian luxury. No shortcuts, just raw drive and an unshakable belief that he could make it happen. That's how Sujimoto Construction was born, not just as a company, but as a symbol of possibility. A vision built from the dust of Agege, aiming straight to the clouds of Ikoyi. But as his name started spreading across the nation, his towers began touching the sky. Success came with a price he didn't see coming. At this point, Sujimoto was no longer just a name, it was a movement. Everywhere you turned, people were talking about him. His interviews trended, his quotes flooded social media. He became the symbol of young success in Nigeria. He was living the life, luxury cars, designer suits, powerful connections, and big promises. Every project launch was like a movie premiere. The cameras, the influencers, the press. To many, he was Nigerian dream personified, a man who proved that anything is possible if you believe enough. But with fame comes expectation, and expectation can be heavier than concrete. Investors began to watch closely. People didn't just want to hear his dreams, they wanted to see results. Every word he said became a promise. Every promise became pressure. He wasn't just building luxury apartments anymore, he was building a reputation. And in Nigeria, a country that celebrates success but also questions it, one small mistake can turn admiration into criticism overnight. Still, Sujimoto kept pushing, hosting grand unveilings, announcing new projects, making bold declarations that captured everyone's attention. Some saw him as a visionary, others whispered that he was overreaching. But in his mind, he was unstoppable, a man destined to change the skyline of Lagos forever. Yet, behind all the glamour and social media noise, something else was quietly building up, a storm he didn't see coming. Success has a funny way of hiding the cracks. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Towers, the fame, the luxury. But beneath it all, whispers had started to grow louder. Some investors began asking questions. Projects that were once hyped as the next big thing seemed to drag on longer than expected. And when delivery dates were missed, doubts started to creep in. People who once praised him started to wonder, was Sujimoto growing too fast? Was the dream expanding faster than the foundation could hold? In business, perception is everything, and when perception starts to change, it doesn't matter how strong your vision is, the market reacts. Social media became both his spotlight and his battlefield. One wrong headline, one disappointed client, and suddenly, the same audience that once celebrated him began to question him. But to his credit, Sujimoto didn't disappear, kept posting, kept talking, kept defending his name. He doubled down on his confidence, reminding everyone of his journey, his vision, and his faith in Nigerians' potential. To some, it was resilience. To others, it was denial. But one thing was clear, the story was changing. And soon, that echo would become impossible to ignore. Every empire has its breaking point, and for Sujimoto, that moment came quietly, then suddenly, all at once. First came the investors, ordinary people who believed in his dream, who saw the glossy brochures, the luxury towers, and decided to trust him with their life savings. One of them was an elderly professor, 75 years of age, retired, a calm man who had spent decades saving. He invested hundreds of millions of naira, drawn by Sujimoto's promise of a 35% return on investment. The offer looked golden, almost too good to ignore. But by April 2025, the dream started cracking. He had received only a fraction of his money back, and the rest, silence. And then came Isaac, a Lagos businessman. He too believed. Back in the year 2021, he had put 70 million naira into one of Sujimoto's projects, expecting 20% annual returns. He rolled it over again and again, trusting the brand. But by 2024, only part of his money came back. The rest, nearly 90 million naira, vanished into uncertainty. For the first time, people started to ask out loud, was this poor cash flow or something worse? The same investors who once called Sujimoto Nigeria's luxury king were now calling their lawyers, and the whispers, they had grown into a storm. In October 2024, things hit a boiling point. News broke that Sujimoto had been detained and interrogated by the Force CID in Abuja. The case, an alleged $325,000 fraud connected to one of his flagship projects, the Leonardo by Sujimoto. A client had reportedly paid in full for a luxury apartment. Months later, no house, no refund. For a man once hailed as the face of luxury real estate in Nigeria, this was a massive fall from grace. He was released on bail, but the damage had already begun. Headlines spread fast, and the internet, well, it never forgets. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Some defended him, saying every business faces rough season. Others said the red flags had always been there. And while he was still trying to calm that storm, a bigger one was already brewing. This time, not from investors, but from the government itself. Just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, they did. The Enugu state government had a bold dream to transform public education in the southeast. The plan? Build 22 smart schools across the state, modern learning hubs, equipped with digital classrooms, tech labs, and solar-powered facilities. For a project that ambitious, they needed a developer who could match the vision. And who better than Sujimoto, the man known for redefining luxury. So the state signed a deal worth 11 billion naira with Sujimoto Construction. To make things move fast, the company received an advance payment of 5.7 billion naira, almost half of the total cost. The condition was simple: 6 months to deliver the building. But months later, something wasn't adding up. According to reports, several school sites showed little to no visible progress. Some foundations were incomplete. Others didn't match the approved structural drawings. By early 2025, the Enugu officials raised an alarm. They claimed updates were scarce and the Sujimoto team was hard to reach. A joint inspection involving the Ministry of Works and the EFCC visited the project site. What they found was worrying. Most locations were either abandoned or crawling at snail pace, despite billions already released. released. And then came another twist, the banking dispute. The government said the project was guaranteed through Jay's bank, but the 5.7 billion naira payment reportedly went into a Zenith Bank account tied to the Ministry of Works. If Jay's bank issued the performance bond, why bypass them? To the state, this looked like an attempt to block any recovery if the project failed. By September 2025, everything exploded. The EFCC declared Sujimoto wanted, accusing him of money laundering and diversion of investor funds, including the 5.7 billion naira paid by the Enugu state government. His photo, name, and Banana Island address went viral overnight. Nigeria's luxury developer had officially become a national headline. In response, Sujimoto broke his silence. In a video message, he denied all accusation, saying he was not a thief, just a businessman trapped by Nigeria's harsh economy. He explained that cement prices had jumped from 7,000 naira to 10,000 naira per bag, and that insecurity had slowed workers down and inflation had also wrecked his timelines. But the Enugu state government wasn't buying it. In an official statement, they dismissed his defense as a crocodile tears, insisting he had abandoned the site after collecting payment. They reassigned the project to another company and vowed to recover every kobo. At that point, this was no longer just about 22 smart schools. It had become a question of trust between developers and the government, between investors and the entire Nigerian real estate system. Because in the world of real estate, you are not just building houses, you are building credibility. And once that foundation cracks, everything above begins to crumble. Every story has two sides, and the truth, it's often somewhere in the middle. Some people still believe in Sujimoto. They say he's a visionary who flew too close to the sun. Others see him as a warning, a man who let ambition run faster than execution. But whichever side you stand on, one thing is clear. This story has changed the way people see luxury real estate in Nigeria. It's no longer just about marble floors and rooftop pools. It's about trust, accountability, and transparency. Because when people invest millions, they are not buying tiles and windows, they are buying confidence, they are buying your word. And in this business, that word is everything. One broken promise can erase 10 successful projects. And when that happens, rebuilding trust becomes harder than building towers. Maybe Sujimoto will bounce back, maybe he will reinvent himself and rise again. It's happened before in business, or maybe this chapter marks a turning point, a reminder that even the biggest names are not too big to fall. Whatever happens next, one thing is for sure: the story of Sujimoto will be studied and remembered for years to come, not just as a scandal, but as a mirror reflecting the fine line between ambition and overreach. So what do you think? Will Sujimoto rebuild his empire, or has the brand already taken its final bow? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And if you find this story insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, because here we tell stories behind the headlines.